how can the employer and the employees come together to see that the working environment is conducive and to raise high hopes of creating more opportunities for the others to come on board and maybe also help the company grow bigger as well, because remember, the more the company is growing, then the two are also growing. The employee is growing and also is the employer. So our discussion is entirely going to be on the employers and the relationship of employees as well. And as a matter of fact, we're going to be discussing how the employers can handle their employees post-COVID times. We've seen a number of employers laying off quite a number of workers and then also recruiting others. But how best can this be done? And joining us on set, we are honored to be joined by the Federation of Uganda Employers Executive Director, Mr. Douglas Opio. You're most welcome this morning.
Thank you so much, sir. It's a great pleasure to be here.
All right. And I think let's kickstart it off with a simple review of last year's performance from the employer sector.
Thank you so much. Last year started on a promising note. A lot of us actually believed that COVID was on its way out. So from January to February, employers were quite hopeful. But from March, the situation actually became a lot more difficult, because then we experienced a new wave of COVID-19. We had to go into a more serious lockdown until May. So it was quite a difficult year for most employers. We lost a lot of critical staff also during that period. You know, the first wave of COVID-19 was slightly better. 2020, we didn't lose as many people, but 2021 was quite disastrous for employers. We lost a number of critical staff. We lost also a number of business owners. The lockdown issues started to weigh in. Logistic was basically disrupted across the world, and Uganda was not spared in that regard. So 2021 was a very challenging year for most employers. A lot of them had to restructure because they couldn't sustain the level of operations that they had before the COVID times. 1 year is easy, you can work with a bit of reserves that you have. But 2 years, it becomes a little more complicated for employers. So 2021 is a year that we are happy that it's now behind us.
Okay. And indeed, when you say it is a year that almost everyone is happy, it is actually behind us. Now we are looking at post-COVID recovery.
Yeah.
But now the issue of employers and employees, let's get into it. Management, starting from the conflict management. We've got to realize that it is during the period of COVID that some employees, and we must admit, got fed up of either way their workplaces or their working environment because of some circumstances. Either the pay is less and all that, and the demands are high. So how can an employer handle this kind of situation?
Now you make a very valid point there. Actually, globally, it's being referred to as the Great Resignation.
Okay.
Because a lot of employers are resigning en masse. It's happening a lot already in the Western world, which of course I know will reach here. And you make a very valid point that people perhaps are beginning to look at their work differently. They're beginning to look at their work differently. And from the employer side, the first issue is to ensure that you're paying competitively. What you're paying should be attractive enough for your employee to stay. I always tell employers that if you pretend to pay, employees pretend to work. So it's counterproductive. You don't get anything out of that. You get a lot of bad behaviors because people have to fill the gaps.
True.
If you're paying somebody money which is not enough to transport them to the workplace, pay for their accommodation, have meals, pay for school fees for their children, where do you expect them to get the rest of the money? They will use the bad means to get it. So first and foremost, the employers should ensure that they're paying right.
Okay.
Secondly, it's a time when we shouldn't be restricting ourselves to the traditional styles of work. By traditional style of work, I mean in our case, the 8 to 5 p.m. kind of work. Yeah, you can't continue to do that. We should give employees a lot more flexibility, because during COVID, people experienced new challenges. Some experience new exciting things. They want to be closer with their family. Even people who never cared about taking their children to school now want to take their children to school, want to pick them from school. So they might want to work with a different schedule. Okay. So employers should rethink flexible working arrangement, not restricting themselves to the traditional ways of work, so to say. Thirdly, the issue of safety and health. Before, safety and health was not a major issue for our workplaces, but right now, as I talk, safety and health has become the in thing. And aside from that, mental health in particular. In the past, we didn't have conversations at all as far as mental health is concerned. Now, employers have to deliberately put in place mechanisms to ensure that the mental health of their employees are taken care of. And there are a lot of companies, insurance companies, that provide this support, counseling your employees, engaging with them, even insurance brokers like Minet, for instance. So we have increasingly a number of entities that can help you have a better workplace. And then, of course, as an employer, you need to relook at your policies. Okay. Are they still relevant now? Because COVID-19 changed a lot of things, and that implies that also our policies need to change with it. For instance, most employers didn't consider sabbaticals. The fact that, for instance, you could leave a smart TV for 6 months just to relax, to recover and re-energize yourself. During that period, for instance, you're not being paid, but you can then return a way better employee after those 6 months, having gotten extensive rest, explored other possibilities in life, maybe spent a lot more time with your family. So our policies need to begin to consider that. For us now, if you left, that's the end of the story. You don't have to come back to work anymore. The system here also dictated that almost everybody is employed full-time. I think employers will need to rethink that. Oh, okay. Yeah.
But also, let's try to also put it in the context of the employers. Yeah. We mentioned about how employers are supposed to be paying some attractive amount of money. Yeah. But in most cases, when you hear the argument is that sometimes they're not making the money. Yeah. That is why they always have to get money that is rich within their means. Yeah. So if you're to advise on an employer in that particular perspective, how best can they still make it easier for their employees to remain at work?
Now, first of all, it's important for employers to be transparent. Okay. Transparent that, for instance, your audited accounts are available for all your people, all your stakeholders. So the performance of the organization should be in the open. Everybody would know that this is how we performed. Now, there are two ways to pay employees decently. One is to pay a competitive salary. Secondly is to offer an attractive bonus. Now, attractive bonuses can be tagged to performance. So if an employee has performed, they have met their target, or they have even surpassed it, then as an employer, you should consider paying a bonus. So you may not necessarily target to salary, but you could possibly target to a bonus.
Okay, and let's also get into now situations of away from conflict management and all that. Most of the employees have actually come out to say that they would prefer if my employer gives me this kind of motivation. Let's look at the motivation part of it, because we're now looking at a situation, how best can we make these employees love their work, love their workplace, in that even without the salary, they will continue putting in the efforts. Let's get into that discussion as well.
Now you bring the other dimension, which is the intrinsic motivation. Okay. What we have been speaking about are extrinsic motivation factors, things like salary, maybe a house and stuff like that, tangible things. Now, on the other side, on the intrinsic side, it's actually the most important. Research tells us that 55% of the motivation of an employee is actually on the intrinsic side.
Okay.
Now, the intrinsic side is constituted by four main things.
Okay.
The first one is autonomy. Anybody who is working needs a level of control over their work. If you're breathing down on their neck, you can't allow them to be creative, you can't allow them to be innovative, a lot of people will get fed up.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people would want, you give me an assignment, you guide me on what to do, and you leave me room to do it. But not every 20 minutes, every 10 minutes, almost interfering in my work. So employers should be careful not to try to micromanage employees. Okay. Give employees the liberty to do their work. That way, they're a lot better.
Okay.
Secondly, the issue of purpose. Why am I doing this job? I should understand the bigger picture. So essentially, the vision of the organization should be known to all employees. If employees don't know why they're doing a particular thing, then we are in trouble. For instance, if the receptionist doesn't understand why they have to pay so much attention to customers, then it's a problem. Because then they may take them lightly, but these are the people bringing the money. They might quarrel with them as if they're looking for sympathy. So understanding the purpose is critical. Very important as well, thirdly, is the issue of mastery.
Okay.
If I'm doing a job, I should have the competence to do it. In other words, the skills. So on a constant basis, assess the capabilities of your employees. Are they able to do the work you have assigned them? It's very frustrating when you assign me work and I'm not in a position to do it. That way, the level of satisfaction will just go down. So assign me work, but also be sure that I'm able to do the work. If I'm not able to do the work, build my capacity so that I'm able to do the work. And finally, is the issue of relatedness.
Okay.
The working relationship within the organization. Are we treating each other with care? Are we treating each other fairly?
Okay.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at situation as well. We are looking why, because I've apparently got to realize why most employees are leaving work is because of COVID, and most of them realize they can still be self-employed in the long run. But we would need more employees to fill up the gaps in most of the service sectors and, let's say, the industries. So when you're looking at, let's look at recruitment processes. I must admit the recruitment has now changed. In most of the industries or in most of the areas, people are now looking at potentials.
I agree.
So do you believe this is the best way to go?
I definitely agree with that. You know, in the past, employers tried to do their recruitment by themselves. And in many cases, they ended up with their friends, they ended up with their relatives, whom they found very hard to supervise. It's very difficult if you are my brother to ask you why are you coming late today, to be hard on you, to try and enforce the rules. It's challenging. I would most would want you to do it by yourself, which is not possible.
Because I know I'm your brother, then I can come in at any one time.
So, first and foremost, so it's important for you to allow the professionals to support you in this process. And we have had very good entities coming into the market. For instance, Brighter Monday, including for even small and medium enterprises, they can recruit for you. I think the cost might not even reach a million shillings to recruit a very good employee. So you have. It's easier for you to outsource that role rather than put yourself in a situation where you end up with the wrong people, because the specialists use competence-based interview systems. But for us, regular people, we would be asking you simple questions, theoretical understanding. So when it comes to work, somebody is not delivering the way they were talking. Because you basically didn't use the right tool. So reach out to the rightful organizations, NFT, Consult, there are many of them.
This year's theme for the Labor Day is focusing on sustaining a healthy and safer working environment, or focusing on safety and health
Yeah.
for the workers, the employees, and the employers as well.
Yeah.
How can that be promoted, or how can this come to a reality? Creating a safer and health environment.
Now, that's also the theme. Creating the culture is also the theme for our OSH Day, which we are celebrating basically on 28th.
Okay.
And the Labor Day is also looking a lot at the parish development model, how we can use it to cause better socio-economic transformation. But now, for safety in particular, it starts with clarity as far as policy is concerned.
Okay.
So we have the Occupational Safety and Health Act, but that act now has to be translated into a workplace policy. So you define how you will actually implement the law at your workplace. Secondly, you can engage organizations, for instance, the Federation of Uganda Employers, we can do for you OSH audit, to look at your workplace and identify what are the things you need to put right. Maybe safety signs, fire extinguishers, and stuff like that. So once you have done a comprehensive assessment of your workplace, then you will be in a position to know what to put right. And then you can prepare a plan over a period of time. But to allow you to do this well, you need to have a safety and health committee within your workplace.
Okay.
Yeah. And then finally, of course, you need to train your people. Yeah. People need to understand matters of safety and health. It doesn't make sense having a fire extinguisher when only one person knows how to use it.
How to use it,
So
true.
if fire breaks out and the person is not in office, people are stuck.
True. Now also, let's get into the challenges that employers are facing.
Yeah.
We tend to always look at the bosses as, let's say, the bigger problem.
Yeah.
Because you as an employee, you know, I'm rendering service,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to receive pay.
Yeah.
Now, once I fail to receive pay, my boss is the bad person here in the picture.
Yeah.
But now, if you're to draw for us some of the key challenges that the employers are facing, that the public can clearly get to understand.
Yeah. First and foremost, a lot of employers are challenged as far as managing performance is concerned. Sometimes the assumption is made that all employers are clear with setting target and performance management.
Okay.
Yeah. So in some workplaces, performance is not linked to clear results that deliver money. Everybody's contributions towards making that money that the company requires to run sometimes is not as easy for certain employers. Then, secondly, employers are challenged as far as the skills levels are concerned, the competence of employees. Few organizations actually have smart people like you who are able to deliver the job that is required of them. If your employees are not competent, then it's very challenging for the employer to deliver.
Okay.
Thirdly, in some cases you might find the skills are there, but the attitude to work.
Okay.
You find employees coming late almost repeatedly, some being absent, some just behaving in a manner that you can't explain, talking to a customer and then you wonder, where does your money come from? Yeah, you talk to a customer as if they don't matter.
Okay.
As if they don't matter. So you find the attitude, and that then spills over into meeting deadlines, so you don't find employees doing work the right way. So attitudinal matters and skills issues are a big concern for employers. But overall, also, there are a lot of business costs. Yeah, this business cost could be taxes, they could be the inputs that we require, renting facilities, paying even the employees. So the costs also make it a lot harder for employers. But of course, above all else is the level of competition we are experiencing now. Yeah, in the past, our spaces were sort of safe.
Okay.
Yeah, but now you can't go to any business space and you're alone. Yeah,
everyone is there.
Exactly. So the level of competition is just way so high. And that competition means our profit margins reduce as well. Sometimes you have to price slightly low so that you can attract people. So employers are challenged, and I think it's it's important for us to continue to have dialogue between the employees and the employer so that those concerns are addressed.
Well, the next particular situation that I would also want to put in for a viewer here is that I've always had this, and I wanted to discuss it with either an employer or even my boss here, that employers have always found a very huge challenge in recruitment. One, we have a challenge whereby there are people who treat a job as a job and there's someone who treats a job as a career. Now, if you're to differentiate for an employer, how do you deal with these two people? There are people who actually deal with the job while treating it as a job and a career at the same time. They're going to give you quite different services from someone who does it differently. If you're to build it on a scale and you're like, who would you go for?
You know, it depends on what the employer wants. Some employers, they require stability. They require that I'll get an employee and I have them for a longer time, maybe even 5 years or more. So if you want stability, then you're better off with somebody who has both the qualities. They want to perform the job. They are also interested in career development. So from the employer side, it would be as simple as discussing their career objectives with them. So once you know their career objectives, you support them along that path. If they want to get more education, you give them room to do that. You give them study leave and stuff like that. But there are also employers who basically think what somebody is doing is a repetitive skill. So you can get anybody for that job anytime. In that case, you get somebody who actually will execute the job. You don't care about the rest of the things. You just focus on that.
Now let's also get into employees, the employees picture. Employees, you can actually bear with me and believe me that if you're used to the same situation over and over again every day, if you're doing the same task over and over, you tend to get tired. Not because you're tired of work, but because you're doing the same thing and it makes you feel worn out. What can an employer do in such a situation when you have like 5 employees who feel like they are drained, not necessarily drained, but because they feel they're doing the same thing repeatedly?
Now there is what we call job rotation. For it's normal for most of us. Even myself, I can't do the same thing and be happy. So job rotation means that you multi-skill your employees. And that, for instance, is getting into certain spaces to be a standard requirement, like the banks. Before, at the bank, you'd have a customer relations person, that desk where you go to and you sit, you discuss. You would have a tailor, somebody you would pay your money to. You would have somebody at the back end trying to help with the reconciliations and stuff like that. You would have somebody trying to manage your external clients and stuff like that. Now, all these positions basically in the banking of the future will be done by one person. So the rotation, moving, for instance, you could work at the client desk this week or even for a month or two. Next time you're working as a tailor. The other time you're actually out in the field trying to get customers to open bank accounts or to get loans from the bank. So job rotation ensures that people's skills are enhanced and they're multi-skilled. That way the level of satisfaction is a lot higher.
And let's also get to more of these particular situations for employers. I do believe employers have also, I don't know whether you've ever got into an interaction with some of these employers. Parliament is actually planning to work on to process a bill in regards to present a bill in regards to a minimum wage. So when you look at the minimum wage or salary cap, will it be a good one for the employees and the employers, or it will, the employers will feel a pinch if this comes to pass?
Now, first of all, sometimes we misunderstand minimum wage. Some people look at minimum wage as though they are looking at the salary structure.
Okay.
It's not. So a minimum wage basically is the lowest legally acceptable amount to be paid
so
to an employee.
You don't go
below that. Yeah. So in this particular case, a minimum wage will definitely be quite low. For instance, the professionals will not, a minimum wage will not make sense to a lot of them, because they already earn what is above the minimum wage. Like for instance, in this current discussion, people are discussing a minimum wage of around 100,000 or 150. Yeah. So for a professional,
because their money focuses on the maids and all that.
Yeah, with the lower level
exactly.
category of workers. So it's challenging for an employer when that minimum wage is set high. So the employer's ability to pay must be taken into consideration. Let me just give you, use the example I've just given. If you place the minimum wage at 150,000 and an employer down there, let's say at St. Balikudembe Market, and I'm basically serving tea and all these kind of things. That I have a restaurant.
you can't make.
You can't pay that level of wage. Yeah, because you even share employees. They're working here, they're working there. That's how they end up getting the rightful wage. So when we speak about minimum wage, we quite often forget that close to 90% of our people are employed in the informal sector.
True.
So we are not going to make a minimum wage for the select few, the less than
the ones in the formal exactly
sector, because then you're not actually benefiting this economy. Majority of the people are left out. I think paying competitive wages should be arrived at through engagement, for instance, with the trade unions, negotiating wages, which I've seen already being done, for instance, in the flour sector, and it works quite well. The tea, it works quite well. So negotiating wages to the situation in the business is a lot more, much better if we can engage more productively along that line. But minimum wage is not like a panacea like some people think that once you have a minimum wage, our wage issues are sorted. It's not
and when he mentions about the fact that the minimum wage shouldn't be so much of an issue for most people in the informal sector, because clearly it's just, you can just see it yourself. If you're running a restaurant, I believe most people make maybe 10,000 profit a day. You are not going to give out a wage of 50,000, even 50,000 on a daily, then you won't be making any business. And I also believe, but if you are an employee like me, you would want a maximum wage bill. Setting up, and they would say maybe someone is supposed to receive this amount of money maximally, and then it would be friendly if at all the money is a good one. But you mentioned something about the trade unions, and I've always believed that they can work in Uganda.
True.
Though I don't know of the view from your angle whether they can be effective.
The trade unions are actually effective in the sectors where they exist. In Uganda, we have two labor centers, the Central Organization of Trade Unions and the National Organization of Trade Unions. These are the two umbrella body for trade unions. But then when you go to sectors, you have trade unions for the transport sector, you have trade unions for the plantation sector, you have trade unions for the construction sector. In total, they are close to 42 actually, about 42 trade union organizations. So trade unions can actually be effective. And we have seen in sectors where trade unions are working efficiently, the flour subsector, for instance, which I spoke about, they're actually negotiating on behalf of the workers. Negotiating decent wages, negotiating other terms and conditions like safety and health, education, other things that we require to have a good working environment. So the trade unions are important. Even at company level, the trade unions help to pick up issues of employees and present to management. It's very difficult sometimes for somebody to walk straight to a management team member or even the CEO and tell them their problems, because they quite often fear they might be fired. So the trade unions can work within a workplace as the voice of employees, so that you don't just arrive at the workplace as the CEO and your office has been locked. Yeah, there's a lot of trouble in the workplace.
True. And let me ask for some tips to a young employer that you can give out to a young employer who's, he may be 21 or even 40, but it's the first time he's starting up a company. He has this pressure on him or on her that I have employees that I'm supposed to deal with. And it's just a new experience for them. What are those key things that they need to be knowing before they go into this particular situation?
Now it's about you having systems in place, having the right systems, processes and procedures that your organization functions with. The risk for an employer of that nature is to do things randomly. For instance, if you don't have a wage structure, how you pay employees, not after a long time, you will be accused of bias. They will say you pay some people highly, you pay some people low when they're doing the same job. So the simple thing is to have a clear salary structure. That for me, this is the starting level. When people are performing well, this is how I pay them. So you have a clear pay structure that is well defined. But maybe something I should highlight, overall, you need a human resource policy. This human resource policy will articulate all these issues, including what I'm talking about, the issue of the pay structure. Secondly, the issue of contracts. If you are a young employer, maybe you can't afford to give people long-term contracts. You might start with short-term contracts because you don't know how the business will perform. If you give somebody really very good terms and conditions for 5 years, what happens when in the second year business is not going as you expected it? So you issue short-term contracts, which allows you the flexibility to adjust. Of course, you can adjust upwards when things are working well on the other side. Then don't be caught in what we were talking about, hiring only your friends and
family.
It will be very difficult for you to manage them in your business. Even when it might cost you some bit of money, hire the professionals to support you in this process. Then you'll get the rightful employees. Because if you don't have the rightful employees, then you will have challenges basically to deliver. And right from the beginning, have a business continuity plan. Try scenarios. What if COVID comes back again? What will I do with my business? How many people will I have at work? What will I do? Reserves. Now I'm making a lot of money, but maybe some days it might run dry. So the days when you're making a lot of money, that's also those are the days also to save a lot for days that things may not be as well as you would like it.
Well,
so those are
also, lastly, before we even end with this discussion, COVID brought about the digital marketing, digital economy to actually take center stage or take up shape. So when you look at the impact, what is its impact? Also, what is the impact of digitalization on the workforce so far?
First, it's that it has put pressure on us to acquire new skills. Because in the digital space, you have to be competent with digital applications. And from the employer side, it has required us to invest in digital applications. To invest, for instance, Microsoft Teams, so that you're able to work with your employees remotely, to invest in laptops as opposed to before you were having desktop. If your employees can work from home, then you need laptops. Somebody can't carry their desktop. So from an employer side, it requires that you invest in digital tools and those investment in digital tools. Secondly, it also gives you room to hire from far off places, which was previously not possible. You could hire an expert from the US just for a few hours to do work on your behalf or to support your employees to show them a few things. So you can take advantage of talent that may not be locally even available, or might be available, but they're full-time employed elsewhere. So you could still take advantage of that. Now, from an employee side, it calls for a shift in our mindset, a shift in the way we look at work. We now have what we are calling the gig economy.
Okay.
The gig economy is basically means you can work in several places, like doing gigs.
Okay, I know.
Gig,
Influencers doing gigs. Everyone does the gigs that.
Yeah, so it's that's what the digital world has come with. The fact that you could actually work for many employers at the same time, and there's no problem with that as long as you're delivering on your target on a regular basis.
Okay, and then lastly, your last remarks as we are winding up with the discussion.
First, being my first time here, I just want to thank Smart TV so much, and for the excellent job that you're doing in this space, making our economy a lot better, because each time we provide this kind of useful information to our audience, we are making the world of work function a lot better. And then, of course, our viewers out there, the employees and the employers, let's keep the conversation going, and try as much as possible to work for the greater good for all of us. We in it together, basically. That's my message.
Okay, and you cannot make this up, trust me. It is a morning like no other, a cold one, and this is Douglas Opio, the Executive Director for the Federation of Ugandan Employers, a discussion that has been very insightful and impactful for the employees and employers out there. We are living in a world filled up with competition. People are trying to bow out of the workplaces, but then others are pushing harder and harder, because that is the goal. We always want to change the narrative and also change our life as well as the way of living. I do hope you've enjoyed the discussion. If you missed where we started from, you can get into YouTube, Smart 24 TV, then we can definitely, where you can definitely subscribe and get to watch anything that you missed here in this discussion. I do take a break. I'm returning with more from Sports Business. Stick around.